I'm here to tell you why Nick Kurtz might actually be the number one first baseman in 2026 and who is Leo Vries. We're going to talk about those names and more as we cover the Athletics on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, today. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, as always, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify, make sure you're subscribed. And also, if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review if you like what you hear, we would truly appreciate that as well. And if you are a fantasy baseball fanatic like Matt and I, join us on the Insider's Track, where fantasy baseball season never ends. This time of year in the offseason, we're talking about the keepers, dynasty, league players. We're doing prospects. I got my 2026 rankings in the works. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, give us a chance on the Insider's Track. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers come at just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And all right, guys, talking athletics, Nick Kurtz had a monster breakout season in 2025. What do we think about him in 2026? We were kind of predicting Lawrence Butler was going to break out this season. He really didn't live up to the hype. But you know what? His teammate Jacob Lopez had a really good breakout season. Shea Langeliers as well. Jacob Lopez and Luis Morales were bright spots in the rotation. We're going to talk about them. And then who is top 3 overall prospect in MLB? Leo Vries. And the Athletics also have another top prospect in Jamie Arnold. We'll discuss them at the end of the episode. So, you know what? Let's take it from the top. As I mentioned, we're going to do the bats first, then we're going to do arms, then prospects. So let's start with Nick Kurtz. Dude, he was great. He had an awesome season, man. Was really excited to, see that Nick Kurtz kind of lived up to the billing, and then some, to be honest with you. He struggled a little bit. He actually came up, was really, really good, hit a little bit of a skid, and then just overall wound up being, a great player for, fantasy baseball purposes. Here, I'll get you the numbers. I know he hit 290 off the top of the head. It was 36 home runs. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, 290 batting average. I was spot on with that. Over 117 games, 420 at-bats, 90 runs, 26 doubles, 2 triples, 36 home runs, 86 RBIs, and even 2 steals from Nick Kurtz. He had 63 walks and 151 strikeouts this past season. And honestly, I'm believing in most of it, right? I truly think Kurtz, has the legitimate light tower power. He's a big, intimidating 6'5", 240. He doesn't chase a lot, and he does know how to take a walk. So I love that. But the big thing is that stands out to me with Kurtz is the 290 batting average. Are we necessarily buying into it? I don't know if Kurtz is a 290 guy next season. In 2026, but I think Kurtz can easily, stay around the 260-ish mark, but it really depends on what kind of guy he wants to be. Now, when he was down at Wake Forest in college, he was a perennial 300 hitter. Even in the minors, Nick Kurtz just consistently hit 300. So do I think it's out of the tool house for him to be, a 290 kind of bat? It's possible, but I don't know if with the huge monster light tower power comes with it. You very few and far in between see guys that can hit 40, 50 home runs and stay at that 290, 300 mark, unless, you're looking back at the steroid era, right? You don't see that a lot in today's modern day game. It's usually, hey, I'm selling out for power. I'm going to sacrifice some batting average, a la like a Kyle Schwarber type. There's not many. There are guys that do it, right? There's rules. There's exceptions to the rule, but it's just not like a very common thing. And when I look at the underlying stats with Nick Kurtz, you see an X batting average of 255, and you're just like, okay, I'm not 100% sure if I'm buying into Kurtz, continuing to hit at this, 290 clip that he hit at in his rookie year. So what happens is the tape's going to be out on Kurtz. He was, I think undeniably the best hitter in the lineup while he was out there. So what it's really going to come down to with Kurtz is where are we going to be able to draft him next season, right? He finished in Yahoo Standard 5x5 categories leagues. Kurtz finished the year as the number 4 first baseman in all of fantasy baseball. And with that being said, he was the 48th overall player in the game. Bellinger, Naylor, and Alonso finished ahead of Kurtz. And Kurtz finished right ahead of names like Devers, Vladdy, Olsen, and Freeman. I personally, going into 2026, I have Kurtz as the 3rd first baseman right now. The 2 guys I do have over him are Alonso and Vladdy. I still personally believe that Vladdy has more power in the tank, and Alonso, in a contract, with Alonso, the thing being, 272 batting average, 38 home runs, 126 RBIs. We kind of know who the guy is. I think it's going to be like a 260 plus batting average from Alonso, 35 plus bombs easy, 100 plus RBIs as long as he's healthy. With Kurtz, like I said, question marks in the batting average, question marks if the Athletics are going to be, this run producing, team like they were this year. I do see them being really good. We're going to get to the one of the top prospects in all baseball later, who maybe makes his debut next year and comes and, helps the team as well. But it just depends, because if Kurtz, I feel like Kurtz is going to be going 2nd round, maybe early 3rd round. I just don't know if I'm buying in at that price. Let me be the guy that says, hey, I'm going to take the year off of Kurtz because I don't want to buy in at that price, and I think there's going to be more value at first base later, because I think first base is actually going to be stacked in 2026. Give me a guy like Vinny Pasquantino, arguably 5 rounds later, 6 rounds later, who's going to, give you a 270 batting average with, 30 plus homers too, and, 100 RBI. Not crazy far off from, what Nick Kurtz did. I know Nick Kurtz is definitely better than Vinny P. I've gotten hate for saying, that they're close before. But the thing is that I just think for the value, right? Like, obviously, yeah, Kurtz is going to be the better player. I think Kurtz is, going to beat Vinny P in a lot of statistics. But I don't think, forgive me if you guys disagree, but I don't think the home runs are going to be crazy far apart. I think Vinny P could take him in batting, could take him in, RBIs. The runs I'll give to Kurtz. But you know what, man, I don't see the value being crazy worth it taking Kurtz in the 2nd, 3rd round. That's me personally. I want to see the buy it year, right? Like, hey, show me you can do this one more time. I have to 2027, right? I want him to make me eat my words. But with that being said, I digress. Let's move on to Lawrence Butler. I was a big Lawrence Butler guy coming out of, the 2024 season. Butler really showed out, especially towards the end of the year. So I had a few shares of Butler coming into the 2025 season. Didn't really work out too well, right? Butler in 152 games played had a 569 at-bats, 83 runs, 30 doubles, 2 triples, 21 bombs, 63 RBIs, 22 steals, had 59 walks to 179 strikeouts, and he hit 234. Now, in 30 less games and 125-ish less at-bats in 2024, Butler hit 1 more home run, stole 4 less bags. So And he hit for a way better batting average. So when we see Butler take a 30-point loss in batting average, we see him, hit one less home run in, way more games and way more at-bats and only 4 more steals. Definitely a disappointing year. The price that we paid on Butler, wound up being a bit high. I'm going through ADP right now. He was the 23rd outfielder. It was pick 67, so yikes. I definitely was in on him, so I forgive you guys on that one. I could always, admit when I'm wrong, and that's why I like to hype up when I'm right. But with Butler, man, definitely was wrong. I still think that there's better, days ahead. Butler's still fairly young. And, like I said, this team's getting better. There's good coaching there, with Athletics. And they're working on, moving. So with Butler being 25 years old, I think he's going to be there for a while. Underlying stuff really wasn't super sexy this year. But if you only look back at 2024, I think at minimum, Butler could be like a 250-ish guy, 25 to 28 homers. He's not super fast. The sprint speed, even in 2024 was 58th percentile, went all the way down to 36th percentile this year. So even 22 steals is more of just him wanting to do it than him actually being quick. So with Butler, I don't think the price is going to be high at all. I'm not afraid to buy back in if I'm getting him like as an outfielder 5, a bench player in some spots. Not going to be mad at it. But Butler is definitely, I don't think he's like the 30-30 guy that we thought he could be, coming out of 2024. But with that being said, we still got names like Brent Rooker, Jacob Wilson, Shea Langeliers, his breakout season. And then we're going to do pitchers and prospects. That and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I need to talk to you about my friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is once again brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less than on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute, but my personal favorite part is, Prize Picks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with the player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players' lineups in the apps, and you can copy it with one click. And the new injury reboot feature, come on. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. Honestly, guys, that is so awesome. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups. Once again, after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And I said it earlier, and I will say it again one more time. If you are a fantasy baseball fanatic like Matt and I, that means you always want some fantasy baseball talk in your life. So Matt and I are giving you that on the Insiders Track, where we're talking fantasy baseball 24/7. With this time of year, we're talking keepers, dynasty. We're doing, giveaways. I got my 2026 rankings in the works. So if you want to see the early cut of that, join us on the Insiders Track. I'll give you that. The link is in the bio if you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. But guys, I digress. I want to keep things pushing here for you. I want to get you that fantasy baseball knowledge going. Brent Rooker, actually, pretty solid year from Brent Rooker. Not somebody that I winded up with too many shares of because I actually want to check myself here. I know him and Butler were drafted actually somewhat close, if I'm not mistaken here, as I fact check myself. Yeah, Rooker was taken as the 18th outfielder. Butler was taken 23rd, so it wasn't crazy far apart. But if you stuck with Rooker, honestly, it was a lot better of a time than if you rode, the season with Lawrence Butler. So Brent Rooker played in all 162 games for the Athletics this year, had 626 at-bats, 92 runs, 40 doubles, which was nice, 3 triples, 30 bombs, 89 RBIs, 6 steals, 65 walks to 155 strikeouts. Rooker hit 262. I feel like Rooker's going to be 31 next season. I feel like I kind of just expect more of the same. Rooker's got the power. I think he's going to keep his good spot in the lineup this year. As far as the batting average, the underlying stuff believes in it. Rooker is a career 259 guy, but over the last 2 seasons, we've seen improvement of him going to a 293 batting average in 2024, and the 262 batting average kind of makes me believe in the underlying number that says 274. So if Rooker could be a 270 guy, 30 home runs plus, he's giving you 90 and 90 in the RBIs and runs. He even chipped in 6 steals this season, and he gave you 11 last year, and he's in the 50th percentile of sprint speed, which makes him pretty much just as fast as the Lawrence Butler type who stole 22 bags this past year. I like me Rooker. I think he's a top 20-ish outfielder. I'm not mad at him taking Rooker as my a low-end outfielder number 2. Let me check my rankings and see if I'll give you guys a little bit of an inside cut because, I appreciate you if you're listening this year. But as I get those pulled up, the thing with Rooker in general is we've seen very similar seasons the last 3 years. Starting back with 2023 when Rooker was an all-star for the first time, the only thing that we didn't see was the batting average. But we saw the 30 home runs. We saw the counting stats. Okay, they're not great, but if this team gets a little better, they could be there, and this team has gotten a little bit better. Let's see where I threw Rooker in. I threw Rooker in at 24, and I'm not mad at that. I know he was going a little bit higher last year. I feel outfield isn't deeper than it was last year, but I feel like maybe not so many injuries, and it does thin out really quick. I feel like Rooker is one of those last outfielders that I believe in. So I would take him as my low-end outfielder number 2 and walk away very happy with that. If you like Rooker and you want to pay up for him a little bit more, I'm not going to be mad at you for that, because like I said, outfield does thin out. I want to say after 30, you're really struggling to say me to be I could, plant my flag in that guy and really back him. So I wouldn't be mad at Brent Rooker going into 2026. I think there's going to be some value there. And I think there's some safety in a Brent Rooker pick as well. Like I said, we're getting the power. We're going to get the good, runs and RBIs in this team, I think. And I don't think the batting average is going to kill you. I think worst case scenario, maybe it's a 250 batting average, but I think that's really on the lower end side of an outcome for Brent Rooker. Let's talk about Shea Langeliers. Dude, I'm a fan. I finally have bought into Shea Langeliers. I wound up acquiring him in one of my leagues last year and honestly was thrilled down the stretch with the production that I got from Langeliers. Overall, it was 123 games for Shea. He had 481 at-bats, 73 runs, 32 doubles, 31 home runs, 72 RBIs. He stole 7 bags, 36 walks to 103 strikeouts, and he hit 277. Here's the thing. I think we're going to have to pay up for Langeliers. I think he's going to be a top 5 catcher. I'm probably not going to have any shares. And the reason just being is I don't personally like to buy in early on catcher and, top 5 catchers, probably top 100-ish pick. I like to, dig at the bottom of the barrel and, kind of see what I end up with. But I don't think you're going to wind up with a bad time if you take Langeliers. I still think, I definitely believe in the power. The 30-plus home run power is there. 73 runs and 72 RBIs in 123 games. We talked about how the Atletics, scored a bunch of runs this year, and, we're definitely pretty good at that. So I think that, the counting stats should still be decent for him. The 277 batting average, though, don't know if I'm buying it being that high, but could, Langeliers be a 250, 260 hitter, with some improved plate discipline that we saw this season. He didn't strike out as much, didn't walk a significant amount more than he had in the past, but I'd just love to see that, hey, he's not, striking out as much, so that shows a little bit of improvement with the plate discipline. So Langeliers, I mean, if he was going as a top 150 pick, I'm in, but I don't think we're unfortunately going to be able to get that kind of value on the Langeliers. But I do believe in the production. So if you guys were questioning the production for, the 27-year-old Langeliers, Definitely something I think it's a repeatable season, except for the batting average, which I think does take a step down. But Langeliers is definitely one of the best rising stars as far as catcher goes in the game. And before I finish up the bats with Jacob Wilson, and then we'll do the arms in Jacob Lopez and Luis Morales. And guys, I'm so excited to talk to you about Leo Vries, so you're going to want to stick around for that and more coming up next. And guys, I promise I got this one lined up. We're going to talk about my friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I personally love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting. You know, when you've got a little something riding on the action, you know, it really does make the game that much better, right? Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience the best you've ever, gone through. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Do that ASAP. All right, guys, let's just keep going. Jacob Wilson. The funny thing is Matt and I were Jacob Wilson guys. We didn't really get to talk about him, maybe as necessarily as much as we liked to building up, to the 2025 season. But we definitely talked about him a lot at the end of, 2024 because he had his moments, right? It wasn't like an overwhelmingly great time for him in 2024, but we definitely saw the flashes. So Matt and I did buy in 2025. We had him in our listener league. If you were part of that, we actually had him all year long in that league. We didn't have a great showing in the listener league, but honestly, I blame Matt. Matt, my brother, but we had a tough go of it. Last year, I had my own team. 2 years ago, 2024, I had my own team. I finished in second that year. Maybe we'll go back to having our own teams in 2026, but we will see. But Jacob Wilson himself, 125 games played this year, dealt with a little bit of injury, 486 at-bats, had 62 runs, 26 doubles, 13 homers, 63 RBIs, 5 steals. He had 27 walks to 39 strikeouts. He loved his stat. He was a points league monster, and he hit 311. I believe in Jacob Wilson. I don't think he's like blowing you away in any one specific fantasy stat, but he's not killing you anywhere either. I think I want to say he's like, put my money where my mouth is. Where do I have Wilson at shortstop? Actually, I do have him in there at shortstop 16. So I know that sounds a little bit low, but listen, like I said, he's not going to give you a crazy amount of power. I don't think he's going to go out there and even steal 20 bags or anything like that either. But if it's like a 15 home run, 5 steal profile where, if he plays 150 games, you're talking maybe 80 and 80 in the runs and RBIs. And I think the 311 batting average is somewhat sustainable. I don't think he hits 300, but he can hit 285, 290. I definitely think that's in the realm of possibility for Jacob Wilson. So, even an all-star this past year, Jacob Wilson was. So somebody that, just depending on where he's being taken, I believe in the talent. I do think maybe at, the age of, 24 years old next season, that we could see him, maybe grow into a little bit more power at 6'2", 190. Don't think necessarily he's going to get any quicker, but you know what? If he can get closer to 20 bombs and hit 290 with 80 and 80 and 5 steals and just be good in points leagues, that looks a lot better on paper. And it definitely helps us keep him in our lineups in fantasy leagues as well. Let's do a little bit of pitching here. The Athletics, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot going on in the pitching department, but Jacob Lopez was pretty good. had, a good run of it here and there, was useful in stints, but kind of got a little bit tricky if you weren't, paying attention and you were just setting and forgetting. You didn't realize when he was going on those bad ends, and you might have caught some of those really bad starts. But in total, the 27-year-old Jacob Lopez for the Athletics made 17 starts, came out of the bullpen in a few other games, so it was 21 games played for him overall. Had a 4.08 ERA across 92 innings, had 113 strikeouts over that time, had a 1.27 whip. Now, with Jacob Lopez, I don't necessarily know if I'm buying him taking a step forward next year. But the thing is, I feel like I've said this about all the Athletics players, or at least most of them so far. I believe in who he is, right? A lot of the underlying stuff looks good. If you look at some of the stuff for ERA, it says that, he was due for more of a 3.5, ERA. Batters, really had a tough time, seeing, some of his pitches. His four-seam fastball that he throws, 37% of the time only sits at 91, but it gets pretty, solid movement. Batters only hit 220 against it. His slider was Jacob Lopez's bread and butter. So you go from that fastball that's 91, and then you see that slider that's 78 miles an hour. It does really throw you off. So that's a 201 batting average against Jacob Lopez's slider. The cutter and the changeup really did get hit hard. So, that's something that Lopez could, potentially, work on this year, because they got good run on them. They got good break, good run, on those breaking balls, but just necessarily didn't get the best results. He's a big dude at 6'4", 220. He gets good extension. He doesn't really get hit hard. I just think there's a really good pitcher somewhere in here with Jacob Lopez. We saw a bunch of, 10 strikeout starts this season, double-digit starts, even 8-9 strikeout starts. Jacob Lopez did a bunch of times. So I think he's a guy that if Lopez could be a 3.5, 3.6, ERA kind of guy with well over a K per nine, and then even if we have to take a little bit of a hit in the whip department, if Lopez could get it down to, let's say, like a 1.20 whip, I'm not even going to be necessarily that mad at that. I think he's going to be more of a dart throw, though, in 2026. I don't think he's somebody that necessarily I'm going out of my way to draft, though. So with that being said, Lopez there was not too many other pitchers, for, the Athletics that I think are going to be even super relevant going into 2026. So I don't mean to do them any sort of disservice, but this is a fantasy baseball podcast, so we're going to really keep it fantasy baseball relevant. Not really buying in Jeffrey Spings or Luis Severino. Luis Medina is somebody, Luis Morales is maybe somebody that we look at who had a decent year, but I'm not really going to get in depth with him because he's, once again, not somebody I super buy into. I like Jacob Lopez a little bit more. But let's talk about Leo DeVries, guys. We are here. One of my favorite prospects in all of baseball. And honestly, I wish Matt was here to talk about him with me. Leo DeVries is the number 3 prospect in all of baseball. He headed over to the Athletics in a trade this offseason. He is only 18 years old, but he's 6'1", 183. He's got a great hit tool. He got better as the year went on. And it's funny, as DeVries climbed the levels in minor league baseball, he got better. And, high A, he played for, 2 different teams, as I mentioned, the trade. But, as the year went on, he got better. So we'll talk about his second stint in high A after the trade. It was 15 games, 268 batting average. He had 2 homers and a steal with 4 walks to 15 strikeouts. He was okay, but really took it to another level when he got to Double A. DeVries did. 281 batting average over 21 games, 17 runs, 7 doubles, 5 homers, 16 RBIs, 10 walks, 20 strikeouts, 2 steals. Now, I think DeVries, top 10 prospect for a very good reason. I think the upside here, 30-30 kind of profile, should be decent counting stats. Like I said, this Athletics lineup has been, scoring runs pretty well the past couple of years. And let's see, if DeVries is tearing up Double A, this year, and then they decide, hey, the first couple of months, and then they move him to Triple A, and he continues to hit like that, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a DeVries at the All-Star break. The Athletics showed us they're not afraid to, be aggressive with their prospects, a la Nick Kurtz, and couple other kids. I can't remember the other outfielder's name that came up last year for the Athletics, but they called him up as well. Let's see. Do I have it pulled up here? Just as I look, I don't think, no, they don't have his name here. But Max Muncy, another young prospect that got called up for them last year, Geloff a couple of years ago, just, another for instances. So they are aggressive with their prospects when need be necessary. And like I said, Leo Vries is, the number 3 prospect in all of baseball with all due good reason. But let's talk about the number 38 prospect in all of baseball and, another one of the Athletics high-end prospects. It is Jamie Arnold. Now, Arnold, another guy who actually has not had much, any minor league experience at all yet. But he does have that big fastball that, averages about 95. It gets up there, touches around 97. But also, he does, back that up with a nice big sweeping breaking ball that sits at around, 82 to 85. That slider, it could be a little bit wild at times, but it does have nice break and it's good to it. Arnold can fill up the zone. He's pretty good at that, throws a lot of strikes. So it's going to be interesting to see what the young Jamie Arnold can do, once he gets the, call up to the Athletics. Personally, I do like that slider a lot. Like I said, it's just the control of it. And Jamie Arnold was picked in the first round of the 2025 draft by the Athletics with the 11th pick. So high prospect pedigree here with a guy like this. Just keep the name in mind. Not sure if he makes his debut in 2026. As I said, doesn't really have much minor league pitching experience yet, but we know the Athletics can be aggressive with their prospects. But guys, that is all for today. Shout out to all of you, our everydayers and new listeners, for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And guys, make sure you check out the newsletter as well. But until next time, see ya.